Welcome back to The Explainer. I gotta tell you, I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're looking at something just totally fascinating. When we think of technology today, our minds instantly jump to smartphones, right? Or AI, or silicon microchips. But what if I told you that the ultimate tech pioneers, like the original disruptors who completely changed the trajectory of our entire planet, actually lived thousands or even millions of years ago? Today, we're exploring the ingenious tools, the structures, and the wild inventions of our ancient ancestors that literally built the foundation of human history. So just imagine for a second, waking up tomorrow in a world with absolutely zero electricity. No engines, no computers, not even basic metal tools. There are no roads to drive on, and no factories churning out the stuff you need. The stakes for early humans were entirely 100% about survival. Yet from this incredibly raw, brutal starting point, humans somehow managed to build enormous monuments, engineer these really complex farming systems, and even invent writing. So how on earth did they do it? Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to trace this journey across 5 eras today: basic survival, settling down, motion and might, preserving the mind, and finally the global legacy we all share today. All right, starting off with Section 1, Basic Survival and the Spark of Innovation. This is really where humans took that very first massive leap toward actually altering their environment. To really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of deep time we're talking about here, consider the timeline of history. The wheel popped up around 5,500 years ago, and agriculture maybe 12,000 years ago. But the history of technology, that actually starts over 3 million years ago. I mean, the acceleration of progress over that time is just absolutely staggering. So 3 million years ago, our earliest ancestors did something completely revolutionary. They shaped simple stones into cutting tools. Now, I know, primitive hand axes might look pretty basic to us today, but they were the ultimate multi-tool back then. They used them to cut meat, prep plants, and obviously defend against predators. But the absolute crucial point here is that this was the very first time humans were changing nature to meet their needs, rather than just surviving whatever nature happened to throw at them. This single deliberate breakthrough, just chipping a rock to make a sharp edge, eventually led to absolutely every invention that followed. It's wild to think about. And that brings us to what is arguably humanity's greatest technological achievement of this era: learning to control fire. Now, fire wasn't just about getting cozy on a cold night. It protected early humans from dangerous animals. It cooked food to make it way safer to digest. And crucially, it allowed humans to harden wooden spears. Ultimately, controlling fire was the essential stepping stone that made metalworking possible later on. Without it, civilization as we know it simply would never have existed. Period. Moving into Section 2, Settling Down and the Agricultural Revolution. Around 12,000 years ago, we start to see a massive paradigm shift. For literal millions of years, humans were just small, nomadic groups of hunters. But agriculture? It completely transformed that, setting off this spectacular domino effect. So first, humans start cultivating crops and domesticating animals. Well, because crops need water, farmers engineer canals for irrigation. And that allowed civilizations in places like Mesopotamia and Egypt to just flourish in these remarkably harsh, dry environments. Then, once you have successful crops, you get food surpluses, which means you need storage buildings. And finally, those massive food surpluses support rapidly growing populations, leading directly to the rise of permanent cities. It's just a perfect chain reaction of innovation. Okay, let's move to Section 3 and see how this all builds: motion and might, engineering and metals. This is where human capability truly accelerates on a monumental physical scale. Around 5,500 years ago, one of history's absolute greatest inventions makes an appearance: the wheel. But here is the really surprising part. We didn't actually invent the wheel to build sports cars or even chariots. It was actually invented for arts and crafts, specifically making pottery. But, it didn't take them long to realize its broader potential. It soon completely transformed transportation, allowing these heavy carts to carry goods across massive distances. This expanded trade between completely different, distant civilizations and ultimately inspired the countless mechanical devices that are literally still essential to our modern lives today. At the same exact time, the materials we were using underwent a total revolution. I mean, for millions of years, we relied on stone, which is useful, sure, but it's pretty brittle. The discovery of metals, though, like copper, bronze, and iron, that changed the ancient world forever. The Bronze Age and Iron Age gave us tools that were immensely stronger and just way more durable. Suddenly, farmers could produce way more food, builders could create significantly stronger structures, and yeah, weapons became far more effective too. Metal fundamentally rewrote the rules of what humans could build.
And speaking of what humans could build, just consider these monumental achievements. We're talking the pyramids of Egypt, Stonehenge in England, the massive temples of Mesopotamia, and those meticulously planned cities of the Indus Valley. What is truly staggering about this, and I mean mind-blowing, is that these ancient engineers accomplished all of this without a single modern crane or engine. Moving stones that weighed literal tons with astonishing precision required incredibly careful planning, highly advanced math, surveying, and just deeply skilled labor. Their work was so brilliant that it honestly still challenges modern engineers to fully comprehend it today. No joke.
That brings us to Section 4, Preserving the Mind, Writing and Science. Because, technology isn't just about heavy physical machines. It's also intellectual. In fact, writing is arguably one of humanity's absolute greatest inventions. The Sumerians developed cuneiform, and the Egyptians created hieroglyphics. Now, why does this matter so much? Because suddenly, we could record laws and manage complex trade. But most importantly, and this is a real game changer, writing preserved knowledge. History itself only became possible because, for the very first time, information could survive long after its creators were gone. The knowledge of one generation could finally be directly passed down to the next. And all that preserved knowledge, it completely paved the way for remarkable ancient science and practical infrastructure. These civilizations weren't just sitting around thinking about abstract theories. They were actively solving daily problems. They carefully observed the stars to develop calendars to predict the seasons for farming. Engineers designed massive aqueducts that carried fresh water for miles and miles. Architects mastered domes, arches, roads, and bridges that literally lasted for centuries. Oh, and we definitely can't forget ancient China, which introduced world-changing inventions like paper, the compass, and early forms of printing. Each and every one of these innovations practically expanded human knowledge in a huge way. All right, finally, we're at Section 5, Global Legacy, a Shared Human Endeavor. Now, what's really interesting about this is when you view all these historical puzzle pieces side by side, a fascinating truth emerges. Brilliant innovation didn't just belong to one single civilization. Across continents, human creativity was solving problems simultaneously. You have the Maya with their advanced calendars and astronomy, the Egyptians mastering stone construction, the Romans building those vast networks of roads and aqueducts. The Indus Valley civilization designed incredibly sophisticated, planned cities with complex drainage systems, and China introduced innovations that went on to influence the entire globe. It was truly a worldwide phenomenon. So when we step back and look at the whole shebang, a very clear picture emerges here. Ancient technology was never just about tools. It was fundamentally about solving problems. It was about building communities, improving lives, and passing knowledge from one generation to the next. The tools look a lot different today, sure, but the core purpose of our modern technology, it's exactly the same as it was 3 million years ago. I absolutely love this quote from our source material. Every modern invention rests upon discoveries first made thousands of years ago. Whether it's a towering skyscraper, a modern computer, or even a spacecraft heading to the stars. Literally, none of it exists without the discoveries of the past. The story of ancient technology is just a brilliant reminder that all human progress relies entirely on the curiosity, the imagination, and the sheer courage of our ancient ancestors to create something entirely new. So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. The next time you use a simple tool in your kitchen, or write a quick message on your phone, or even travel down a paved road, will you remember the original inventors? Their brilliant minds stretch across thousands of years to touch our lives every single day. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you next time.